Today, we are diving deep into a legal showdown that puts an ancient power, one designed to protect politicians, right up against the modern idea that no one, absolutely no one, is above the law. It seems like such a simple question, right? But as a huge scandal in the UK showed us, the answer is way more complicated than you'd think. It actually forced the country's highest court to draw a line in the sand about the absolute limits of political power. So where does this story begin? Well, not in some dusty old courtroom. It starts with a public scandal that absolutely rocked the British establishment and, honestly, shattered a lot of public trust. And look, this wasn't about political disagreements or anything like that. We're talking about accusations of straight-up fraud and theft, all allegedly done with taxpayer money. The scandal was massive, and people were understandably demanding some serious accountability. So, when several of these politicians were officially charged, everybody thought, okay, here comes a typical legal fight. But what they did next was, well, it was a shocker. They didn't just say they were innocent. They made a claim that was way more extreme. Get this. They argued that because of a special, ancient power, their actions were completely beyond the reach of the entire criminal justice system. In essence, they were claiming total immunity from the very laws they were elected to write and protect. Now, this ancient power has a name: parliamentary privilege. So what is it? Well, at its core, it's a concept that's meant to protect free speech and really lively debate inside Parliament. The whole idea is to make sure politicians can do their jobs without being scared of getting sued or prosecuted for something they say on the floor of the House. And this isn't some new thing they just made up. Its roots go way, way back, over 300 years, to the Bill of Rights in 1689. It was actually born out of a huge power struggle between Parliament and a king who was throwing his weight around. But that led to the billion-dollar question for 2010: does a protection designed to stop a monarch from silencing debate also work for modern criminal behavior? This quote just nails the whole spirit of the law. Parliamentary privilege was always meant to be a shield for democratic debate, protecting the way government works. It was never, ever supposed to be a sword for individuals to just strike down the law and put themselves above it all. So this just set the stage for a constitutional heavyweight match. You had the ancient rights of Parliament on one side, and on the other, one of the most basic principles of the entire legal system. The politicians argued that filing expense claims was an internal affair, part of the proceedings in Parliament, and because of that, only Parliament itself could judge them. But the courts came back with a simple, incredibly powerful idea: the rule of law has to apply to everybody, equally. And an alleged crime like fraud, that's a job for the criminal courts, no matter who you are. So with these two massive principles on a collision course, someone had to step in and settle it. That someone was the UK Supreme Court. And their decision in a landmark case that we now know as R.V. Chater would draw a line that would forever change the relationship between power and the law. Now, the challenge here wasn't about just getting rid of privilege altogether. The court actually recognized that it's really important. No, the real task was to figure out exactly where its protection stops and where the regular, ordinary rule of law has to kick in. And the court's logic was, honestly, pretty brilliant. They shifted the focus away from who the person was or where they were, and instead, they zoomed in on the purpose of the action. They asked a really simple question: was this specific act part of the core or essential business of being a lawmaker? So let's just walk through their thinking. Step 1, what is protected? The core stuff, right? Speaking in a debate, voting on a new law, that's protected. Okay, step 2, what isn't? Well, the court said filling out an expense form is just an administrative task. It's no different from what millions of other people do in their jobs. And that led them to a really clear and unavoidable conclusion: privilege just could not apply. The Supreme Court drew a really sharp, really clear line. The special job of making laws, that's protected by privilege. But the criminal act of breaking the law, nope, not protected. The shield could not be used to hide a crime. It's as simple as that. Okay, so why does this one case about some expense forms matter so much? Well, because the final verdict has some really profound implications for the health of democracy itself. This ruling was a true landmark moment. It powerfully restated that no one, no matter how important, is above the law. It made sure our elected officials are held accountable for criminal acts, just like you or me. And in doing that, it cleverly updated a 300-year-old principle, making it fit for today's world while still respecting the different jobs of Parliament and the courts.
When you really boil it all down, this case shows us how a modern democracy has to balance two critical things: the need for free and fearless political debate, and the even more fundamental need for justice and accountability. It's a powerful reminder that all power has to, eventually, answer to the law.
So this case solved one very specific question about expense claims, but it left us with a much bigger one, didn't it? In a time of intense political division and so much misinformation, the challenge of holding power to account never goes away. So we all have to keep asking, where is that line between privilege and impunity today, and who has the courage to draw it?